You have opened Draves Archives. This entry begins with a storm that did not come for conquest, but it came for penance. That distinction matters more than most wars ever do. He was once called Vaelen of the Wake, the Tempest Wielder, a man spoken of in the same breath as shipwreck, lightning, and kings who mistook distance for safety. Stories claimed he could split the sky as easily as other men split wood, but the sea itself learned his temper. That thunder answered not to season, or pressure, or the indifferent mathematics of weather, but to him. That is how legends prefer to remember such men, or people, as masters, as singular beings with clear dominion over the force history associates with them. But force is rarely so obedient, and storms of all things are poor servants to human vanity. Vaelen carried a sword in one hand and a bolt of lightning in the other, and pride clenched tight between his teeth. That part the old stories likely tell true. He was not born a ruin. That matters, because no one ever is. Whatever else Vaelen became, he first had to be the kind of man a kingdom could believe in. A blade, a banner, or even a storm given human outline. And kingdoms love such figures right up until the weather changes direction. They say he tore the skies above Roscar. The tyrant's fleet had gathered there. Black holes, iron beaks, standards dyed the color of deep cuts and old command. An armada built for certainty. That is one of the first lies war tells itself. That enough ships, enough steel, enough shouting men arranged in proper order can make the sky behave. Roscar learned otherwise. The storm came down like judgment to those watching from shore, but to those trapped within it, I imagine it felt less holy. Rain so hard it erased command, wind that tore signal fires sideways in the darkness, lightning striking mast after mast into the fleet no longer looked like a military formation, but like a constellation being murdered in full view of the sea. And at the center of it was Vaelen. He broke the fleet. That much no one disputes. But victory is where the clean version ends, because in that wreckage, he found it. It was called the Cradle of Hollow Thunder. Even the name sounds like a warning to any age not already too enamored with relics to hear one properly. A relic born of drowned gods and exiled mages. What matters is that no one should have mistaken it for blessing. It was bound in storm glass, whispering the voice of dead skies. He should have left it there, buried beneath the wreckage, pinned under salt, pressure, memory, and the deep indifferent weight of all things the world once tried to forget. But instead, he took it. He kept it. And that is how nearly every disaster worthy of archiving begins. From that day on, the thunder followed him, even in silence. Years passed, cities rebuilt. Vaelen vanished. Some say the relic fed on him. Others say he fed on it. Those versions are less opposite than they sound. Years passed, cities rebuilt, Vaelen vanished. There are disappearances that happen publicly. This was not that. Vaelen did not die into certainty. He thinned out of the world. First from court, then from road, then from rumor in all but the most stubborn of places. There were stories, of course. A lightning strike in clear weather, a harbor bell ringing by itself while the sea lay flat. A ruined watchtower found split in two with no sign of siege or ordinary storm. Some claimed they saw him inland, cloak dark with rain, though the season was dry. Some swore he walked the beaches at low tide, speaking to the surf as though it held the last clear vision of his own name. I think the truth was slower, less theatrical, more cruel. The cradle did not merely follow him. It changed the way silence sat inside his life. And the man denied stillness will eventually seek one of two things: more noise, or the one place noise cannot follow. Vaelen, for reasons that matter greatly, chose the second. When the wind howled east and the sky cracked like old stone, Vaelen returned. He did not return to conquer, not to wield. He returned to take the cradle back to the place where no storm should reach. That is not the language of conquest. This is the language of restitution, spoken by someone too late to believe restitution and redemption are the same thing. However, that geography had a name: the Vale of Ebenstill. A valley of silence, no birds, no echoes, only glass-like water and forgotten smells. There are locations in old records that feel invented simply because the world ought not to permit them without protest. The Vale of Ebenstill is one such place. A valley without birds already suggests a broken pact. A valley without echoes suggests something worse. Because an echo is simply the world agreeing to answer that you were there. To lose that response is to stand inside a geography that has withdrawn one of reality's most ordinary courtesies. And the cradle pulsed in his hands like a heartbeat made of thunder. At the edge of the veil, or perhaps somewhere already within it, Vaelen finally spoke. "Take it back. I am done with your herald." There it was. Not command, not bargaining. The word that matters is herald. A herald is not source, not master. A herald is announcement, arrival made audible, the visible form through which something larger declares itself to the world. If Vaelen called himself the Cradle's herald, then somewhere during the long years between Roskar and Ebenstill, he had finally understood what the relic had made of him. Not wielder, but mouthpiece. Not lord of storms, but its procession. Some stories must be measured not by how much was saved, but by whether anyone still managed to speak accurately at the end. And with that, Vaelen stepped into the Vale. Sword drawn, lightning trembling through the bones of the world. That is the last full image, the last surviving record that allows us, and perhaps that is mercy. Whatever happened next was never meant for witnesses who still think events must become understandable simply because they occurred. I do not think there was battle in the ordinary sense. The The confrontation was between conditions, storm and stillness, relic and origin. The long accumulated velocity of all that had followed him meeting. At last, the one silence that did not consent to reverberate it. He was never seen again. People often think that a return means restoration. But not all returns are made to reclaim. Some are made to release. Vaelen did not return to become himself again. He returned to stop carrying what had long ago made self an unstable category. That is the mature sadness at the heart of this entry. He was not saved by understanding, not absolved, not restored. He simply reached the point where he could finally name his role correctly and walk toward the one place where naming it might still matter. There is courage in that, not the bright courage of banners and war songs. A late courage, a private one. The kind that asks not whether you can still win, but whether you can stop passing the burden onward. Sometimes, when the wind stirs in still water, you can hear thunder humming like a promise. That is how the account ends. Not with certainty, with residue. What kind of promise? That is the question. The old line refuses to settle for us. A promise of return. A promise of containment. A promise that the cradle still exists somewhere beneath the unechoing hush of Ebon still. Or perhaps the promise belongs not to the relic, but to the silence that received it. A promise that even the loudest inheritance may still be carried back to the one place where it can stop mistaking itself for destiny. Vaelen, I think, endures for what he returned. And somewhere beneath a valley without birds, without echoes, with water too still to call ordinary, something old still hums. Not loudly, not greedily, more like a promise the world has not yet decided whether to fear or to keep. The vault closes for now. Hey everybody, I hope you enjoyed that one. I enjoyed this one. I kind of wanted to make this kind of like an origin story for my profile picture that I'm using currently. Because my profile picture is a character that I had made up to be somewhat like a mage warrior in a way. I feel like this is a really cool origin story for it, but in the future I will have a more lore for my character on the channel. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed this one, and we'll be back soon with the next one. And I don't know what the next is going to be, but I hope you enjoyed. And if you enjoyed, I hope you would leave a comment, like, subscribe if you want to, turn on notifications if you would like to see when my next upload is, and I'll see you next time when I do a review of Dark Souls 3. Have a good one. Bye-bye.